Hi, I'm Mark Mueller from the Educator Effectiveness team. In last month's DPI Connections, we talked about aligning SLOs and targeting greatest student need. This month, I want to dig into that just a little bit further by building off of the student growth percentile report that Laura showed in her clip. So, as you know, in terms of setting SLO goals, there's really two ways to set goals. There are the setting of growth goals, where you're looking at how much a student is going to grow given 1 year's worth of instruction. And you can also look at setting SLO goals that really are based on attaining certain levels. Like in this case, the student is achieving at basic in the 12-13 school year and proficient in the 13-14 school year and basic again in 14-15. So realistically, in terms of setting goals for SLOs, it's always about asking that next question, which is, where do I really need my student to be, or my group of students to be, and how do I get them there? So one of the things that can happen is you can use either growth or attainment goals to really hone in on where you need them to be. In this case, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about growth goals and trying to determine how do we get our students to that area, especially as in this case with this example, we see that a student might have slipped from proficient to basic, and we need to figure out how can we get them to grow back up into proficient and in what areas. So in looking at the student growth percentile report from the perspective of a building leader, building principal, director of instruction, somebody who can see the overall growth of students, one of the really valuable things from that building leader perspective is that the student growth percentile report can show trend information for students that have been in your building. Now I say have been in your building because we're always looking at, with that report, a group of students who were in those positions in, for example, a grade level or a building in the previous year. So for example, the current 8th grade students that would be in an 8th grade building will be able to see their most current results for the growth that happens between 6th grade and 7th grade. So the 7th grade teachers will be able to see the growth made as a result of their instructional year, but they no longer have those students in their student population. So as far as teachers go, this isn't necessarily a super informative report to get down to an individual student need. However, at a building level, it's really great to use in order to get that wide perspective of how a district or a building is performing. And the student growth percentile report can show trends of growth, especially for disaggregating down into specific reported populations, looking at race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, even gender. As you'll recall from last month, we used this graphic to show what the creation of an SLO process looks like and how it really always starts at the very top with an analysis of data. And that filters down from system-wide data to looking at identified areas of need and at the building level, assessing root causes to really develop that SLO topic or focus area. Student growth percentile report can help a building do that by really staying focused at that uppermost level. So looking at district data, school data, and student data, and conducting that as part of the system-wide analysis. It might be helpful at a building level. It depends on if you're looking at groups of students who are in the building year after year after year. And maybe you can also use the same report to compare different groups or different cohorts of students over time performing at different grade levels. At the student level, though, it's helpful to see some of the students' past performance, and it does help to roughly identify students who might be included in a target population. However, again, the caution is that you're looking at students who are performing from a year ago, so they may have also changed quite a bit in that year as they've entered the next grade. So again, some of the limitations of using the student growth percentile report is, again, we're looking at last year's data in students, and in some ways it only really provides very general information as to what the SLO area should be. It doesn't really get down into the details, and those details are sometimes really important, especially at the teacher level, to determine what an appropriate SLO should be and for whom. Finally, the reports themselves don't really give principals or teachers a context for how much growth is necessary. So it's not a comparative report. It just really shows the median growth and gives you an idea of where the students are performing. So what I've done is I've set up, using some real school data from someplace in Wisconsin, I've set up a sample student growth percentile analysis that a building principal might take on. So I'm going to pretend that we're going to be a suburban K-6 school and that we're going to use our reading WKCE or WSAS student growth percentile results. And we'll use it all for the same year for the 2013-14 results. I've done a grade distribution by gender, and we'll look at grades 3 through 4, and the growth from 4 to 5, the growth from 5 to 6, and finally as those students transition out to the next building and go grades 6 to 7. So in that first year, we'll just start, and this is typically what a report looks like that a principal can pull up. In this case, I've used the orange circle to indicate the female or the girl population and the blue circle to indicate the boy population in the building. The size of the circle obviously changes depending on how many students you have. So in this case, we've got, in the third grade to fourth grade cohort, we've got more girls than boys. And you'll notice that those girls are performing, right around they're growing at about the 58 student growth percentile point. And really they're showing up at about 40% proficient or advanced in reading. The boys, same group, same age, showing up with about 38% on the student growth percentile point and 22% proficient and advanced. If I'm looking at this as a grade level, that might give me an indicator from past years, this is where our kids were, and maybe by looking at other past years going further back into the 12-13 and maybe the 11-12 school years, I might be able to see some growth trends just for the 3rd to 4th grade growth, and that might be informative to the 3rd to 4th grade team. Continuing though on the way using this as the principal, as the building leader, if I start looking at the 4th to 5th grade growth, now I'm starting to see that, the boys have come up a little bit, 48% on the student growth percentile and 23% roughly median proficient and advanced. We're starting to see though that the girls are starting to slip backwards. 36% proficient and advanced, but now only 40th percentile in terms of student growth percentile. Looking at that again for the next cohort, the 5th to 6th grade growth, girls are slipping even a little bit more. Only 30% are proficient and advanced, but we're getting to the 29th percentile in student growth percentile. Boys, again, kind of holding their own around the 24% proficient and advanced, and 45th percentile in student growth. Not too bad, but what I'm already starting to see is a little bit of a trend over time in that building. So as I'm the elementary school principal, I'm going to look at how they transition out, and I notice that, when they go to the next building, now all of a sudden our girls have shot up to 62% proficient and advanced, and they're in the 70th percentile for student growth percentile. So a big question I might ask myself is why the big transition? And if I map those all out together and I look at in just this year where these cohorts have gone, this is what I pulled out and started to map out together. What I'm really seeing is student growth from 3rd grade to 4th grade, 4th grade to 5th grade, 5th grade to 6th grade that is continuously going down. And the student growth is getting smaller and smaller given that year's worth of instruction over time. What's also worrisome to me, if I'm looking at this from a principal's perspective, is that by the time that the students move to the next building, they're immediately making a major jump in terms of both their student growth percentile and in terms of the percentage of proficient and advanced using WKCE. So to me, that might give me a little bit of direction in how I facilitate the SLO process building-wide. So again, if we go right back to this chart, we think about the process for taking that data and identifying it and bringing it back down, what we really have the opportunity to do is to combine and focus on looking at SLOs that in terms of alignment might have more of of shared growth strategies or SLOs that have growth goals rather than attainment goals. Now, there may be some areas in some places, once you do, again, a little bit more digging in terms of what the right SLOs would be, what the right SLO topics would be in order to get students to grow. There might be some folks who most appropriately have an attainment goal, but as a building principal, this could point a big trend at some things that are going on in my building and bring up a great context for having a conversation about curriculum from grade to grade, and that really does fall within the new role of the instructional leadership role of the building principal. So finally, the last thing that I wanted to point out is that, again, as you look at what a typical student's report might look like, you do get a chance to see how they are growing, how they've performed over time. And when you do pull up an individual student report, you can kind of see how they performed over time and where they might land based on different potentials and different pathways that they might take. Again, this isn't a tremendously helpful report because this is about students that have been in your class for the previous year, but you might be able to use this report to at least help kind of focus and construct that rough target population for an SLO if you're a teacher. Again, you don't want to stick too much to this as being a clear and definitive piece of information that says a student does or doesn't belong in a target population. It really does have to match who the student is, what their needs are, and what the target area is. So hopefully you've been able to take away a little bit of resource in how you might use the student growth percentiles report in looking at facilitating conversations at a bigger level in your building, and particularly as a principal or an instructional leader, and looking at the ways that might inform practice going forward.